Hey folks, and welcome to Solarcabin channel. This video is going to be a bit different than what you're used to. I usually make off-grid videos and talk about my cabin and projects that I'm working on. But this video is going to be about how to make money from your homestead. And one of the questions that I get asked a lot is how do I make a living? How do I support myself on my off-grid homestead? And I want to explain to you that I've used a lot of different ways of making a living through my life. I was a professional teacher for a lot of years. Burned out on that and retired from doing that. Then I started a pest control business, and that was a great business and made me a lot of money. Going in a small community, I started out where there really wasn't anybody doing that sort of work for people, and there was a big demand for it. And so I got in on the ground floor of that and built up a lot of customers and made a lot of money doing pest control. But that business wasn't really great for me physically. It was very, very hard on me physically because I've got a bad back and bad knees getting around and doing those jobs. While I was doing that, I was also building my off-grid homestead, and I built a small 14 by 14 cabin, which most of you have seen. And I decided, you know, maybe other people would be interested in this project that I'm working on. So I wrote a very simple book called Simple Solar Homesteading. It was only 78 pages. I never expected to make any money off it. All I was hoping for was to maybe recoup some of the money that I put into my cabin, since it cost me about $2,000 to build my cabin. If I made $2,000 off of selling that book, I would recover my cost for my cabin. And that's all I was, seriously, that's all I was ever thinking about when I wrote that book. But that book became extremely popular. And part of the reason it became extremely popular is I wrote it right around the time that the economy crashed. Millions of people lost their homes and jobs, were really struggling, and they were looking for an alternative, and they were tired. They either couldn't get another home because the bank wouldn't loan to them or something like that, or they just decided they didn't want to go back into that system where they had house payments and rent and stuff like that, where it could just be taken away from you like that, and you could lose everything that you build up over time. And so my Simple Solar Homesteading book taught a lot of people how to build their own off-grid homesteads, their own small cabins, and live without house payments and rent. And because of the timing, that book was extremely popular, and it sold a lot of copies. And it just amazed me. My eyes opened up. I'm like, wow, there really is a need for this kind of information. And at that time, there wasn't anybody out there doing those kinds of books. So I found a niche. I kind of fell into a niche of information that people really wanted. And I decided, well, I might as well keep doing this because I enjoyed writing. And it was a way for me to use my teaching skills. And it was just also a lot of fun writing these books and things like that. And so I started exploring how I could get into other projects and do other things that were that involved off-grid living and things like that. And the result was now almost, let's see, I wrote the first book, I believe, in 2008, and it's now 2019, and I published, I think, about 15 books and over 120 videos, and my work has been seen in Mother Earth News, in Habitat. It's been published in several other books about off-grid living. It is the top off-grid channel on YouTube. It is the top listing on Google. And, you know, none of this, but I'm going to tell you, none of that happened by accident. Some of it was, I was helped along the way by other sources, but there are steps that you can take, and I had to learn these the hard way because at that time, remember, the internet was still fairly new. People were still really not getting involved. YouTube was new. That was back before YouTube was even owned by Google, okay? And Facebook was extremely new. It had just come online, and there was just, you know, all these different social programs and some of these social networks like Pinterest and that, they didn't even exist back then, okay? So I had to learn step by step how to go about marketing my books so that I could get them out to the people that I wanted. And I also got a lot of ideas for how to self-publish, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video, because self-publishing is the way now that I support myself on my homestead. I retired from doing pest control when my book started selling real well, and I decided to focus on just writing and producing off-grid cabin plans and ebooks and promoting products and things that I thought would be very beneficial or helpful to off-gridders. And my focus, and it's one of the things that I decided when I first started, is I was going to keep everything very inexpensive, affordable for people, because people were going through a hard time. They were struggling. I mean, just to come up with a few bucks extra for an ebook or a book, that's a big deal. And so it has to be worth it, and that you have to give them good information. You can't be taking advantage of them with crap. You got to give them good information, and you want to make it affordable so that all people could get it. And that was my goal, was not to make a bunch of money. And I'm going to tell you something that I learned in a class, and I don't remember who taught it to me, but we was talking about business, and he said, you know, there's two ways that you can become a millionaire. You can inherit $1 million, or you can sell something for $1 million, or you can sell an item for $1 to 1 million people. Now I want that to sink in there, okay? You can sell something for $1 million, but not very many people have $1 million to buy something. But you can sell everybody something that's very valuable for $1, and if you sell 1 million people one item for $1, you still made $1 million, okay? So I want to let that sink in. Now, I am not trying to impress you that I am a millionaire or something like that. I'm not, okay? And I never intended or thought that my books would ever amount to as much as they have. Now, I have made a very good living off of ebooks and books. And it's been enough that I was able to retire at 48 years old. Not too many people retire at 48. I retired at 48, and I've been retired now for, what we're going on, almost 12 years, something like that. I'm not going to tell you how old I am. So, it is a very positive experience. If you enjoy writing, if you have a little bit of skills, you don't have to be the best educated person to write a book. In fact, the more down to earth you are, and the more more knowledgeable you are about a specific subject, generally the better your audience will tune into what you want to tell them, what you're trying to teach them. Now, I write how-to books. Some people write novels and other types of books. I find that writing novels and that, even though you can actually make good money writing novels and things like that, it is a lot harder to market, because you're competing with a lot of well-known people that write novels all the time, and professional publishing companies that hire people to write novels. So you're really competing against a massive amount of people to sell a novel. So unless you're Steve King, that can write great novels and turn them out, crank them out like fast, and have name recognition, which I'll talk about, unless you have name recognition, you're probably not going to do too well in the novel field, unless you pick a specific niche of novels, here again, that other people aren't covering. Now, finding a niche, that's the real key if you want to be successful at publishing anything. And in my case, it was off-grid living and designing solar cabins and homesteading. That was my niche, and there wasn't really anybody doing it, and so I was able to get in on the ground floor. Now, if you go look online, there's all kinds of people talking about off-grid living and designing solar cabins. Tiny houses weren't even a thing back then. My house, I didn't call it a tiny house. It was just a cabin, an off-grid cabin. Now tiny houses that fall within that category of under 200 square feet are everywhere. They just exploded like mad because everybody got into tiny houses. Well, I was doing it long before that. We just didn't call it a tiny house movement. It was an off-grid cabin movement. Okay, so, you know, but I found a niche, and I filled that niche, and I tried to become the best at it, which meant I had to educate myself. And that's one thing that if you're going to publish a book, you got to be knowledgeable and you got to know what you're talking about. So you're going to have to educate yourself. Now, that's not too hard nowadays, because you've got online information. You can go and get more information. You can take classes at your local vocational school or your college or something like that. You can go and talk to the old timers that are doing the skills and learn from them. So there's ways that you can develop and develop your education so that you're giving really good information. Now, I want to impress on you, don't sell crap to people. Give them good information, solid information that's well researched, that you know what you're talking about. Now, I do how-to books, and those are much easier to market, but they don't make as much money, generally, as some other types of writings. So, choosing a niche in how-to it's becoming harder. It was easier when I started because there wasn't all these different online services like YouTube and Google and all that. They were just new, and so it was easy to get in on the ground floor if you kind of knew a little bit about how the internet works and how search engines work. It's harder now, and people are starting to fill in those niches. So you're going to be competing against more people than I was. And people are now even trying to compete against me. A lot of people, and I don't mind. You know, that's all part of what I'm doing in trying to spread the word about off-grid living. So I don't mind that people are trying to compete with me, and I see it a lot. I actually see some of the people that got their first cabin ideas and first off-grid homesteads built when they contacted me and got my information and asked me questions. And I've always been really open to people contacting me over my email and just asking me whatever. If they're setting up their solar system and they want to know what kind of controller I recommend for a certain system, what size wiring I recommend for a certain solar panel system, what panels I recommend, what materials I recommend for a cabin, what to do about water and stuff like that. I've always been open to answering any of those types of questions. Well, now a lot of the people that started with me 10 years or so ago have started producing their own videos and ebooks and trying to get into the business of trying to support themselves by self-publishing. No problem with that at all. Bring on the competition, guys. I can handle it. Okay? And in fact, the fact that I'm getting older and I've had my shot and done really well at it, and I intend to continue publishing and producing and making videos and teaching people about off-grid living, but I want to impress that, you know, eventually I'm going to pass away. You know, that's part of life. And someone else, I hope, because I do care about this subject, I do hope that some of you younger people, guys and gals, that are into homesteading and off-grid living and solar system stuff like that, will carry on that work. I don't want it to die with me. I want my work to carry on, and I want that to carry on through another generation of young people who are going to continue on that work, because new technology is always coming out and new systems are coming out. So I want to impress it. You know, spreading the word is not about so much about making money for me, and has always been about creating an atmosphere where people can learn and then spread that, teach that information to other people. Because we want to build an entire community and world of people that understand about simple living, and that's what I'm really doing. So now I'm going to walk you through the basic steps of self-publishing. And if you understand how I have used these different systems, it will save you a lot of time, because you'll be able to go right to the sources and you'll be able to start publishing your ebooks right away. And I will also save you maybe some heartache and headaches of doing it the wrong way that might get you into legal trouble, and also will provide you with a more stable income. In this first part, we're going to talk about self-publishing and doing it the right way and using the sources that are already available. In part two, I'm going to talk about multiple streams of income. And that is because ebooks offer you a tremendous opportunity, so do printed books, but ebooks more so, to have a multiple stream of income, not just from the selling of the ebook, but by tying it into other product lines and other social networks and things like that. So in part two, I will show you how to do multiple streams of income so that you're going to make even more income off of your ebooks and books than you would if you just self-publish a book and that's it, it's done. So now, let me walk you through the basic steps of self-publishing an ebook or a book.
Okay, folks, I'm going to walk you through the basics of self-publishing. And one of the things that people always ask me about is, what tools do you need to start when you get publishing? Where do you get started? And that's probably the biggest problem is that most beginners have, is they're just not quite sure how to start, because they think they need special tools and things like that to get started writing. You actually don't. I write all of my books and ebooks right on an old copy of Microsoft Word version 7, the old version. One of the reasons I chose that is because it has a feature for saving a PDF. So you can save it as a PDF, and that's where the format that you're going to want to be saving your files as for ebooks or printed books. So you need a word processor version that will save to a PDF, and I recommend the old version of Microsoft Word, or if you have paid for the new versions of Microsoft, they all work the same way and they can all save to a PDF. Now this is my latest book that I'm working on right now. It's called Modern Thoreau and How to Build Your Own 8x12 Thoreau Cabin. And this is a work in progress that I've been working on now for about a month. Probably take me another month to finish it. I simply have my page set up for an 8x12 book. A standard version, or 8.5, whatever it is, 8.5 by 11.5, I think is what they are. And I will show you when we get into this of how to go get the formats that you want to use for different types of books that you're publishing, because all books are not the same. Some books are published in large format, some books are published as novel format, and so you'll decide on that later. So here's just an example. So I do my headline up here. I put, and these are space holders. I will use different pictures. So I've got a space holder here. I've got my name down at the bottom of it. I've got page numbers on each page, and I'll talk about page numbers because that's kind of important. And then I've got, at the first page, I've got a simple dedication. This is for my grandson Liam and his parents, and some information about me and my book and my experience in writing this book. And there's a picture of my cabin. And this will also, when I do this, this will be on the inside cover. It will also be on the back cover. I will use this for the back cover of the book because you need a front cover, a back cover, and then, of course, the interior materials. So there's the dedication and the back cover of the book, and also the information that goes into the book with some information about what I'm going to be talking about in this book. Then I go into an introduction of what this book is about. Now, this book is talking about Thoreau, which is Henry David Thoreau, who many of you may be familiar with his work. Talked about simple living, sustainable living, and had a very interesting life on Walden, building a small cabin. So I am doing a book about his life, but also explaining some of the reasons for his thinking. And so that's what this book is about. And so I go into so a lot of information that maybe other people that have written about Thoreau didn't include. And I talk about some of his early life before he went on his experiment in the woods. And so I've got about 3 pages of that. Now I can tell you, people are different today. They don't want to read a lot of text. Okay, they are very visually oriented, especially young people are very visually oriented. So if you don't have pictures every so often, you kind of lose your audience. It's too bad that people don't use their imaginations more like we had to when we were young growing up, but they just don't. So if you write more than 3 pages of text, you're probably going to lose them. You need a picture or something in there, especially with how-to books. Not so much with novels, but with how-to books, you need pictures. So then I go on to my description of how to build the cabin. And what I've done is I've interspersed the plans of how to build an 8x12 cabin, and there's the foundation for the cabin. And then I intersperse information about Thoreau. So I do a page of design work for how to build the cabin, and then I go on and I link that to work that is in Thoreau's book, Walden, and on civil disobedience, and I talk about that, and then I do another page of plans. So this keeps the reader interested in that they're not just looking at long pages of text. They read and then they study something, a plan that they're actually interested in. Then they read a bit more, and by doing that, by the time they reach the end of the book, not only have they got the plans they wanted, they also got the message that you're trying to portray in your work. Now, maybe you don't have a message. Maybe you're just teaching them basic skills or something like that. But I try to teach and encourage people to learn about off-grid living. So I include the information along with it. Now, I just write that out, and I try to come up. You need to come up with, and I'll explain this, for self-publishing with the system that I use, you need to have at least 32 pages. 32 pages isn't very much. I can write 32 pages in a day. Okay, and generally my books take me, about a month to publish. And I try to shoot for anywhere between 32 and 52 pages, but my longest book is 355 pages. But I'll tell you that was not written all at once. It actually started out as a 75-page book, and then as I developed more plans, I just added them to the book until the book eventually became 355 pages. So you can actually do that if you're working on a group or set of work that all kind of fits together. You can write a short ebooks that are anywhere 32, 50 pages, something like that, and then you can combine them into a larger work down the road. So keep that in mind as you're working of how you're going to tie this in together. Now, assuming that you've found your niche and that you're going to start publishing, you've at least got the basics, the start of a book, okay? Then what I'm going to suggest is the next place that you go is you're going to go to lulu.com. and we'll just go here. Let's see, this is Lulu over here. This is who I publish to for self-publishing. And they've been in business for a long time. They produce both ebooks and printed books at very reasonable prices for the self-publisher, and they make it really easy for self-publishers. Now, I will also talk about other places where you can self-publish, but this is where I self-publish, lulu.com up here, you can see. And then you can just choose what it is that you want to write. Okay, and just click on Create here, and you can go to either a print book, an ebook, a photo book, or a calendar. Now, they do a lot of self-publishing for people that just want to produce something for their family, that aren't actually trying to sell books or stuff like that. But it is also a very good source for people that want to, like me, that want to publish ourselves, because you can actually make a good amount of money off of the books. Now, that's important. If you publish through a publishing house, most authors receive less than 10% of the sell price of the book. Because especially for printed books, it costs a lot of money to produce a printed book, and the publishers take most of that money. And the book producers that publish the book and print the book take most of that money. So most authors make less than 10%, unless you're a very well-known author that with a name recognition that can demand more than 10%. And even then, those people that say they sell $1 million books, half the time those books they're making less than maybe 20% if they're a really well-known author off of their books. With self-publishing, you make a lot more money off of your publishing. Now, lulu.com I think is probably one of the best places to start, for especially for beginners. So you go up and you just select what it is that you want to create. So let's say we're going to create a printed book. So I'll click on printed book here. It'll take you to the page, and you're just going to scroll down here. And you want to do either select the type of book you want to make, print book or ebook. You can start with an ebook, and here's the thing is you can produce an ebook and turn it into a print book, or you can produce a print book and you can turn it into an ebook. It doesn't matter. I would suggest starting with both a print book and an ebook, because you're gonna have people that want a solid something they can hold in their hands and print, and then you'll have a lot of people that want an ebook, because ebooks are a lot cheaper than a printed book. So let's just say we start with a printed book. And it will go to the page where it will let you select your different type of style. You're going to create a printed book. You're just going to go through and you're going to select the style of book you want. Now, you've got a bunch of different choices here, and each one costs different. Like if you want to produce a 6x9 black and white perfect bound book, it will cost per book $3.25. That is not how much you're selling the book for. That's how much it costs to produce and print that book for you. If you're producing a U.S. letter, and this is the one that I usually produce, is an 8x5 by 11 inch black and white perfect bound paperback, would cost you $4.40 per book. Okay, that's your cost for the book for printed. Okay, and then you're going to select how many pages. Now, in order to produce certain books, let's go to 8x5 11. Then you're going to determine how many pages, and it will tell you down here the minimum and maximum pages. If you're going to produce this book, you need to have at least 32 pages, and it can be up to 744 pages. And if you want to see how much it will cost you per book for how many pages you're putting, let's say that you produce a book that is 50 pages, type that in, or we'll say 60 pages, and then say how much it will cost you per book. It will cost you $3.20, whoops, make sure we get this right. Yeah, it will cost you $3.20 per book for that book. Now, if you want to go to a different, let's say you want to produce a 200-page book, it will cost you $7.40 per book to produce that book. Okay, so that's a really easy way to determine how much it's going to cost, and from that you're going to set your price. Now, you can just go directly and make this book, but what I suggest you do is download the template. If you download the template and then load that directly into your word processing program, then it will have all the margins already set up and all the page numbers already set up in the book, so that it will fit exactly the way that it should fit on the page, because a page, once it's bound, is different than it is on a flat page. It has to have a certain amount of margin on the left side and a certain amount of margin on the right and top and bottom in order for when they bind the book, that all the printing and lettering and everything will be out where it can be read. Otherwise, your printing might end up underneath the binding. So download the template, and that's what this says right here. Download the template for whatever book it is that you're going to produce. And they have a lot of different varieties here. Lulu.com is probably one of the easiest ones I found to work with. Now, I use Lulu, and I'll switch over here to this page. These are my projects, and you can see I've got a lot of them, okay? I've been publishing for a long time. I've got 3 or 4 pages of books that I published over the years. Now, some of these are books that they're smaller booklets of my larger book, my 355-page book. Remember, I said sometimes I take a smaller project, put them all together, and then create a larger book. Now, I've produced a lot of plans. I've got tiny shelters plans, Red Hawk micro cabin plans, Wombat micro cabin plans, Penobscot cabin plans, Stealth cabin plans, Cattail cabin plans, boundaries. I've got all kinds of stuff. Build a wood heated pallet tub, Homestead security, sustainability, crank washing machine, solar. And then I've got all my different books that I published over the time. And then you can publish these directly as an ebook through that can be read on Kindle, and you can choose to have them produced that way, or you can produce them as a PDF file, or you can produce them as a published book, a printed book, and they will supply you with the ISBN, which is your copyright number, and I'll go to that here. So you can see a number down here below my books here. This is my ISBN. They assign that to you automatically. You don't have to pay anything for it. They will assign you an ISBN to your number. That's your copyright number. You are the only one that will ever produce a book under that number. That is your ISBN number that keeps track of your books. All books are copyrighted as soon as you put them into print, but without an ISBN number, you don't have the legal protection that you do. Once you get that number, then you have some legal protection to protect your copyright. And I produce books in both printed and ebook versions. And then, just to give you an example, this is just my revenue for the last quarter. Now, I publish, and I'm going to tell you, I publish both through Lulu, and they handle all of the sales. They handle the sales of the ebooks and the printed books, and then they just collect the money. They take out their amount for however much they charge, and then they at the end of a quarter, because they do royalties on quarters, they send you the revenue. So here's my revenue that's revenue for this month, and they give me a graph of showing what I've made this month and my sales. And here you can see, get an example of what I make. So if I sold an ebook, Ultimate Off-Grid. This is a PDF ebook. It sold for $7, and my revenue from it was $5.41. Here's Off the Grid, which is my Ultimate Off-Grid guide. And it sells for about $24.95, and my revenue was $10.32. This was a paperback. This is the printed version. I sold a couple of versions of that. Here's the same book, Ultimate Off-Grid, in the ebook version, and I made $5.41. So you can see that I make more off of the printed books, but I generally sell a lot more ebooks because they cost a lot less. An ebook is only $7. A printed book is $24.95. Not as many people have $24.95 to buy, but a lot of times they will buy the ebook and then decide, oh, I want the printed book because I want to hold on to this for a long time in case the computers and stuff go down. I'll still have the printed book. So a lot of times I get double sales from people that first buy an ebook and then they buy the printed book. And so here's the Cattail cabin plans, and this one here was a paperback, and I made $12.64. I think that one sells for like $15 or $14 or something like that. Here's the Ultimate Off-Grid Guide, another $5.41. Here's Off-Grid paperback, $10.32. So you can see these are all individual sales, and that's just for a few days. And then you can go to your payment information, and they have this all right there on your website. Once you create an account, you just have to create a publisher account with your first book, and it doesn't even matter if you're ready to publish or not. You can go ahead and set up your account ahead of time before you publish. And here it'll show you my revenue, which I have coming. And here's my total unpaid revenue, $603.06, and my next revenue payment is on May 15th, and this is paid quarterly. Now, you might be looking at that and say, well, that's not a real lot of money. It isn't. But it's spread over, and this is just one source of income for selling my books. That's not too bad. I'm making on average there, if you figure that out quarterly, about $200 a month quarterly selling those books through Lulu. But I don't sell most of my books through Lulu. And this is one thing that I want you to keep in mind, is that you want to use multiple ways of marketing your book. Lulu is a great way to get set up to have your books in print. And that's primarily why I use Lulu, is I want them in print. For my ebooks, I actually sell them myself. And that's where you need to set up a website. That's your next step. After you've set up your account with Lulu or Amazon, and let me just go over here. If you want to use Amazon, you can. Amazon also self-publishes ebooks and paper books. They'll get you started for free. Now, the reason that I don't publish through Amazon, not that they're a bad system or anything like that, but they make you sign a contract that limits you to where you can sell your books. They don't want you selling your own books. And so in their contract, they have some limitations that you can't sell your own books from your website or something like that, or through Lulu or some other source. And so they limit you to selling just on Amazon and just through their service. Well, I don't want to be limited that way, so I don't use Amazon. However, if you do use Amazon, just be aware of that limitation. Also, Amazon, you're competing with a whole lot of other people. They're probably not going to find, unless they're specifically looking for your book, they're probably not going to find it on Amazon because it's a massive marketplace that doesn't just deal in books. People that are looking for books are more likely to go to Lulu that handles just books. That's all they sell, and they don't handle any other product. Now, the other thing about Lulu that I want to make you aware of is that they also will sell your book. Now, they offer this only after you've made enough sales that it actually looks like it's going to be a popular book. Then they will also transfer it to other, we'll go here to my projects. They will also transfer it to other sellers because they work with some of the major book sellers that put books on shelves in libraries and on store shelves and stuff like that. So they also publish, and they publish through Barnes & Noble and about 10 different other businesses that they publish through, so your book can end up on a shelf on a store in your local store. And you will collect money from those sales as well. And it's almost automatically. All you have to do is approve distribution, and your book has to be in a format that they can accept. So it takes a little bit of work. You'll learn that as you go through Lulu. But once you have that set up, that is another stream of income, because Barnes & Noble is probably the biggest bookseller, I think, in the world that puts books on shelves. And so your book can end up in libraries all over the country. It can end up on bookstores, bookshelves, anywhere in any store, and in Walmart or whatever. It can end up on shelves like that. You don't make as much money from those books, okay? Because they are taking care of the distribution and delivery of all those books and the printing. You'll make a lot less money on those types of sales than you will on sales that you do yourself or sales that you do directly through Lulu. However, why do you care? It's still going to sell your book, and it's still going to get out there, so it's just another stream of income. So you should go ahead and agree to that distribution and let them distribute those books wherever they want to. The more you distribute your books, the more advertising that is for you. Now, the next step is, after you've got your book and everything set up, before you start selling, before you release it publicly, the first thing you should do is go ahead and set yourself up a website. Now, I use, this is my website. It's called Simple Solar Homesteading, Off-Grid Cabin and Tiny House Design Supplies, Not-for-Profit Social Service Organization. Now, I had a little experience setting up websites before, but I've reworked my website several times to try and make it look more professional. Here you can see at the top I've got a sliding video screen that links you to my YouTube website, which I'll take you to. And then I've got different plans here. Now, this is the Ultimate Off-Grid Guide, which is 355 pages, and it talks about my 400 square foot cabin. I've got an introduction to that. I tell you a little bit about what the information is that's in this cabin, and then I give you the links. Now, here is an instant download. This is when I'm selling it myself, okay? And I'm going to talk about that. If you click on this, it goes to PayPal, which I talk about, and through PayPal, I can sell you this book for $7 as an ebook. Okay, you can also get this same book on Lulu. It's available on Lulu, but through Lulu, I make a little bit less than if I sell it myself through PayPal. And so I have this one available here on my website. Now, this is the printed book of that same book. It sells for $24.95, and this is handled through, if you click on this link, this one goes directly to the Lulu page, and then Lulu sells my printed books. Okay, they print, and they do on-demand publishing. So it means if somebody orders a book, they generally have some on stock because I sell a lot of books. But if not, what they'll do is they'll print off a book, and then they'll send the book to your customer. They handle all of the transaction. You don't have to do anything. They'll notify you when the book was ordered. They'll notify you that it was sent. And they handle any returns or anything like that. So it makes it very easy for you to publish a printed book. I use Lulu mostly for publishing printed books. Then I also, here's an example of how I've worked my plans into other things. These are several of my older books, my 355-page ebook, and some of my other plans that are very popular, and I put them into a package deal. And in that package deal, I sell the entire package. If you used to buy this separately, it would cost you probably about $100 to buy each plan separately. These are all ebooks, okay? So there's no overhead on an ebook. They're not printed books. And so I can sell the entire package for $10, give everybody a really great deal because that's a lot of information they're getting. 355-page ebook plus several plans for $10, and they get a great deal, and I make a little bit more money because a lot of people will only come and buy one ebook, and then that's where they stop. This way they get several plans and they come back for more. And that's what I'm trying to get people to do, is I want people to come back and stay interested and keep doing it. Now these are some of the separate plans that I produce. This is the Penobscot cabin plan. Here's the stealth cabin plan. Here is the cattail cabin plan. Now these are all usually about 32 or 40 page books. And this is a portable market trader plan. And then I'll get into that other income down there. I've got these are other plans that are very popular. The A-frame cabin plan is extremely popular. I sell a lot of A-frame cabin plans. Wombat camper, also very, very popular. Sell a lot of those. Here's a link to designing your own 8x16 house. Red Hawk is also a small cabin plan, very popular. Bike sport for people that are into sport, biking and stuff like that, or for homeless use. This is a good one here. Quixote Cottage plans, a basic Thoreau cabin. This is my old Thoreau cabin plans that I did. And then I've just got some links for contests that I've run, and I've got client cabins that people have built in my cabins, things on my webpage like that. Now, I'm in this other section in part 2, I'm going to talk more about multiple streams of income, but I'm going to tell you, here's part of the multiple streams of income. On my webpage, I also link to products that I recommend. So, because I'm into solar panels and I recommend solar panels and what kind of systems you need for your small off-grid cabins, here I've got a link to Amazon for Renogy Solar Panel Kit 400 watt, which is the same system I use on my cabin. This way people can click on this, and then I am an Amazon affiliate, and I will collect a little bit of money for every time somebody buys this system, or if they click on it and they buy anything, I make a little bit of money just for recommending and referring this product. Same thing, I've got the AppleCool C20 portable refrigerator. Here I've got an Arctic Cool off-grid personal air cooler. So I recommend some products, and then I've just got information on here. Got some extra pictures of my cabin to, make it interesting, make your websites interesting, encourage people to come and visit. I've got a way for them to subscribe to my website, and then I've got book reviews. Book reviews are important. You won't have book reviews right off the bat. Don't make up book reviews. Use honest book reviews. And so I got some book reviews, and the ones that I thought were from people that people might recognize, like this is Dan Fink, the author of Ask an Expert Home Power Magazine. He did a review of my book, and so I took his book review and I put it on my homepage there. Here are some other customers that talk about my book and how it benefited their lives. And so, I put book reviews right on my website. That helps people to understand. People like to read reviews before they buy a product. So you want to have good reviews. Hopefully your books will sell well and you'll have good reviews. And then you want to include those, use your reviews on your webpage as marketing material so that people can understand what it is before they're getting it and how it's been useful to other people. Okay, so you have your website set up. Now I use webs, and I'll explain why. There's a lot of free, make your own website free out there, okay? You want to be real careful, because if you use one of the free website designers, and there's a bunch of them out there. I won't get into names because I don't want to badmouth any of them. But if you use the ones that are free, they will never get noticed by Google or Yahoo or any of the major search engines. They simply won't come up because those search engines are designed so that they recognize personal blogs and personal websites that are generally not anything that most people want to read. And so they will never be picked up by the search engine, and so you will never get noticed on the search engine. If you don't get your website noticed on the search engines, you won't attract new customers, and you want to always be attracting new customers. So I use webs, and I started with a free website, but then I transferred over and purchased a website plan that has bandwidth and everything like that, and designed my own website. And I suggest this is webs.com if you want to go look them up. They're very affordable for new people. And because this is a large company that's been in business a long time, that makes a big difference. Any website that is produced through webs, that is a paid website, will get automatically linked through what they call spiders to the systems that go through the search engines, so you're a lot more likely to move up the ladder to be noticed on search engines if you use a long-term business that has already been in business a long time. And Webs is best. They started out as a business card producer, and then they got into website. They bought this out and got into website creation, and so they have a long reputation as a positive business. And so because of that, there are people that use their website builder, their websites are a lot more likely to get noticed. Now, there is some other ways, and I can tell you that. Once you've chosen where you're going to produce your website, create your website, and, put it in, make it interesting and everything like that. Talk about your book, get some book reviews on there. I recommend Webs, you use that. Then you want to get your book noticed, or you want to get your websites noticed, and in order to get your books noticed, if you don't have them on Google and Yahoo, people aren't going to be noticing. When they type in a certain subject, like in my case, if they type in Solarcabin, if your website and your books are new, they won't get noticed. They won't even show up on the Google search or the Yahoo search websites for a long time. Now, there are ways that you can get more notice to it, and one of those is you want to use a submit your website, and you can use one. There's several of them. I use this one, which seems to work very well. It's called entireweb.com submissions. Just click that in, type in your website down here, type in your email address, proceed, and then it will link it automatically. It's free. Up to so many websites. If you want to pay for more website search engines, then you can. But it will automatically be submitted to Google, Bing, Yahoo, AOL, AltaVista, Alicos, DuckDuckGo, Excite, and InfoSpace. Those are probably the most top search engines out there, and you probably don't even need to go with any more than those. However, if you want to pay for more search engines to be added and have automatic resubmissions and things like that, you can. Now, this is really important. You need to do this when you first start your website. I would suggest that you resubmit it once a month until you make sure that it gets noticed. Once Google recognizes your website for a specific subject, it will be put into their library, and so anybody who types in a specific subject, their search engine goes through, pulls out the websites that are most relevant to that subject, and then it brings them up to the top of the search engine. And that's what you want, is you want to get your information, your ebook and your website up to the top of the search engine so that you can get noticed. Now, I started mine a long time ago. My website back in about 2008, I think, is when I put it up. And since then, well, let me just show you here. If you type in, let's say you go to Google, and we'll back up here. Let's say you go to Google, and if you want to, you can do this right now. Just go type in Solarcabin into Google on the search engine, and one of the first things that will come up, this is my cabin on YouTube. How to build a 14 by 14 cabin, produced back in 2010, and it will have my video is the very number one because it's got a lot of hits. It's got over 3 million views, okay? Now, you can see some of these newer guys, and this guy actually is one of my customers for a long time ago, Off-Grid Michael. And I don't know about Michigan Backwoods, whether he was a customer or not, but I know that Off-Grid Michael, he started publishing his own work, and he started in 2017. This guy's in 2018. Mine's from clear back in 2010, so that tells you how long I've been doing this. Now, you'll also notice that this is the top of the Google search engine, Solarcabin YouTube. This is my channel. It's the first channel that comes up on Google search. Now you'll notice that the next article down here says a solar cabin in 2 weeks for $2,000. Mother Earth News. This is their website, but they actually did an article on my cabin. So when you go and read this article on Mother Earth News, that's actually talking about my cabin, and it includes a link to my own website and my books. The next link down, Simple Solar Homesteading Home. This is my website. Third link down on the top is my website. Solar Cabin Kit Offices, that isn't mine, that's somebody else's, and that's probably a paid advertisement, I'm guessing. How to build a 400 square foot solar cabin, off-grid world. Guess what? That's my cabin. Again, it has links to my website and my books written on Off-Grid World. Now, I didn't write this. This is the review by Off-Grid World that they did in my book. And you'll go down through these. You'll find several of them that all refer to my books, including, and this is important, Solar Power for a Cabin. There's a picture of my cabin. There's another picture of my cabin. And it talks about a solar cabin in 2 weeks for $2,000. The interior of Lamar's cabin is about 400 square feet. This is the article written by Mother Earth News. And because Mother Earth News is a very well-known, very large, established business that produces information about off-grid living and simple living, stuff like that, it gets a lot of attention and gets right up to the top of Google. And because it's my cabin, I'm also getting attention. So basically, this is how you use other sources to get your books and everything noticed. Now, getting Mother Earth News or some other business, whatever niche that you've decided to get into, getting them to write an article is something I will talk about in another video in part 2. Because you have to develop a name, you have to develop name recognition, you have to produce quality information in order for these other businesses to pick up on your information and do something like this. But once you do, oh man, it really helps your sales. Because now, anytime somebody types in Solarcabin, I'm right there at the top. And if you go to images, if you do the same thing, if you click on Solarcabin and you click on images, I want you to notice this because this is really important. The first 5 images that will come up if you type in Solarcabin, that's my Solarcabin on YouTube. That's my Solarcabin on Off Grid World. That's my Solarcabin on my website. That's my Solarcabin on Mother Earth News, and that's another one from Mother Earth News. Here's another one on GoodHomeDesign.com. That's my cabin. Here's another one on Diet to Life. I don't even know where that one came from. That's my cabin. Okay, here's one on offgridliving.net. That's my cabin. This is one of the cabins that one of my customers built that's also from my website, so it has my website link down there. Here's another one. This is Off Grid World Cabin Tour. This guy is also off from my website. Here's another one, Off Grid World, another picture of my cabin. Here is my book on Amazon.com, and my books are sold on Amazon. They're just not sold through their Kindle publishing. Lulu sells through Amazon for me, so my books are on Amazon. I just don't deal directly with Amazon. So there's a picture of my book on Amazon. And if you just scroll down through, there's another one on Pinterest of my cabin. And you can scroll through these images and you can just find my cabin all over the place, all the way down through here. There's my A-frame cabin. That's my A-frame on Simple Solar Homesteading, so that's on there. There's another picture off Grid World of my cabin there. And, this is very important because there's my one of my other designs with my link on it with off-grid cabins. And, there's several of them all the way down through here. There's the Coyote Cottage from my website. And these are all books and ebooks. There's another picture of my cabin. Okay, so this is really important because the two things that people do a lot when they're searching is they search through the web for information, but then a lot of times they'll also click images, because if you go to images, then they can see a visual picture. Remember, everybody's visually oriented, so they can see a visual picture of what it is that they're looking for, and then they will click that, and that goes to your website. So they're a lot more likely to actually go to your website from an image than they are just from a regular web search. So you want to have good images, and that means you're going to have a good camera and take good pictures of whatever it is that you're producing. Excuse me. So that those images will end up on the image section of either Google or Yahoo or whatever the search engines are. Okay, so that's how I market my ebooks after they're published. I've showed you how to get started publishing. I've showed you how to set up your website. You can choose either Lulu or Amazon. There's a couple others out there, but they're probably not as well known and well popular. I told you that you need to get your website set up through a business that is actually an established business. Use a paid website. Don't use a free website. And then once you've got it set up through Lulu or Amazon, whichever one you're going to use, and you've got your book published, publish your book, get it on your website, and then you'll have to start getting into marketing. And in part 2, I'm going to talk about how to use YouTube and social networks and other sources in order to market your book, because just writing an ebook, if you don't get it out there to the people that are looking for it, isn't going to make you any money and isn't going to get the source of information to the people that you want to get it to. You want to get your information out there. They want the information. You've got to connect the two. And there's a whole lot of different sources where you can do that online. And that's what I'm going to tell you in part 2. So please, subscribe to my channel. Make sure that you go to part 2 and watch that video. All right.